that it would be very easy for them to make into just a bunch of idiots, because it's kind of that. It's that flyover country syndrome. I mean, being someone who has always lived in the middle parts of the country my whole life, I get frustrated sometimes when I see Hollywood productions that really kind of just make everybody that doesn't live on either one of the coasts out to be an idiot, And this is a film where you've got a bunch of characters who are rural characters. They're hardworking folks. They don't have the type of lifestyles that would typically be glamorized by Hollywood. But they don't present like, Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward's characters as idiots. Even Michael Gross and Reba McEntire. I mean, I wondered if they were to remake this today, how they would do those two characters specifically different, because their whole thing is that they're so into, the self-protection and the guns and the home defense and all that stuff. And I'm just thinking in our culture today, they would be portrayed as idiots, and they're not. And just the fact that they lean on Michael Gross's character throughout this franchise, he's the one who has kept it going. And, I think they've softened him a little bit over the course of the 6 films, but his whole genesis is he's a character obsessed with guns. And that's what they've hung this franchise on.
That's a great point. And I also love the line where they're like, you're going to have a heart attack before you can even survive the apocalypse. Because he's always worrying. I thought that was a really good bit. No, but that's a great point, because I liked what you said about I had not even thought about that, to where they weren't treated like they were just kind of bumpkins. And what Nancy, she comes back for 3, actually. Her and her daughter, Ariana, what's her name?
The girl from Jurassic Park.
And they come back for 3, but I like how she's a successful pottery maker, I guess. She could pay 2 men to build something for her for a month, pay them lunches and beer. So that's a good point. There's some successful people in this town, or not successful, but I don't know. That's a good point. I hadn't picked up on that. I almost appreciate the movie more now.
Yeah, the one character that I'm a little bit confused of all the time, though, is the teenage kid Melvin.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, where's his parents? He's just this, 15-year-old kid, but they don't make any reference to his parents ever. Like, what, is he just some 15-year-old runaway that lives in this little town in Nevada?
That makes it a great 80s movie, if you think about it, because in those movies, the kids never had parental.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, because he's not Nestor's kid. He's not with Miguel. He's not Earl or Valentine's. Bert and Heather, no. Yeah, so maybe, that we know of. Is it like maybe a long haul driver? Or is that his daycare? The parents go to work and dump him off?
Yeah, I don't know. And then he comes back later in the series too, which was, kind of surprising. They bring him back as sort of a villain in 3, I think it was.
Yeah, so. He wants to buy the land, but El Blanco becomes an endangered species, and they end up living with right? Remember it's El Blanco, right? The albino graboid.
Oh yeah, right.
And then they can't sell it because it becomes an endangered area. This plot, So I have the plots broken down to the 5. Like, you saw them as well, but I broke down the plots of all 6, just ready to kind of talk about. Like, the second one, they introduce the Shriekers, right?
Yeah.
And then they go to what? Yeah, they go to Mexico, and they use remote control cars.
Mexico.
Yeah, they use remote control cars to blow them up. And then the third one, they introduce the flying guys, and then they introduce El Blanco, who eats other graboids. They become an endangered species. And then Tremors 4 is a prequel where this town's name is Rejection. They know about the Tremors, but they don't tell anybody because they want people to live there, which kills people later on.
It's a Western one, and I gotta admit, of the sequels, that was the one I think that intrigued me the most. I kind of liked them going back to the Old West with that.
Billy Drago getting killed, of course.
Well, yeah, you can't go wrong with Billy Drago in there.
Gotta wipe him out. And then Tremors 5 and 6 are just the relationship between Bert and Jamie Kennedy, who I like in these movies. But 6, when they cheat night, like they'll film day for night. But remember in this one, it's supposed to be in the Arctic, but they just filmed somewhere and put a blue tint on it.
Right. There, that was the thing that disappointed me about 6 the most, was that there's not a whole heck of a lot of scenes that are like out in the vast snowy wilderness. And I thought that was what this was going to be. That's what the poster image is, and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, no, they're just kind of out in the, same kind of environment they've always been in, but it's got kind of a blue tint to it. Yeah.
That was weird.
And now, five was a little weird because that one struck me as just how violent it was. That one was the bloodiest, I think, of all these. I mean, all these films got a degree of grossness to it, but it's mostly, blowing up graboids, and you've got, slimy red jello looking stuff and all that. But in 5, you had like, limbs coming off and blood, and, I wondered if that one, I don't know if it's actually got a rating or not, but I thought that's the one that's kind of closest to being an R rating out of most of these are PG-13.
Wow. Yeah. I don't even remember. They go to South Africa, right? And then, but it turns out there's a guy on the black market who wants the eggs, but then they take the eggs, and that means the queen graboid or whatever attacks them, right?
Right.
So it's like Jurassic Park 3 where the raptors are chasing them for the eggs.
Well, it's very much like Jurassic Park. There's even a shot in there of the, like a shrieker's clawed foot coming in, and it looks just like the kitchen sequence from Jurassic Park.
Oh goodness! I bet you Jay Cluett of Lifers Film and the Lambcast would love us talking about Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah.
That's the best of the franchise, right?
Franchise. Jurassic Park 3, no, I never got to do the official rating on an episode of the show for the series, but no, let me put it this way. I put Jurassic Park 3 above Fallen Kingdom.
Oh, yeah, so. Any day of the week. So how would you rate these Tremors movies?
Oh, I was thinking about that earlier. I mean, obviously the first one is the best, no question there. I think I would actually go 4 next, because I was really intrigued by the Old West premise there. And then I'd probably go 2. 2 is fine. 2 kind of suffers a little bit because I think one of the things that's so strong about the first one is the dynamic between Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon, and you got no Bacon in the second one. So yeah, I go 1, 4, 2, then 5, 6, and 3 is the one that kind of I was not as thrilled with.
Oh wow. I like that. I thought maybe 5 and 6 were going to be the last, but 3 got it.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool. Yeah, I think I put 6 last, because that whole ice thing. I do your list, but I would do Tremors, Legend Begins, 2, and then I do 5, 3, and then 6.
Yeah, I get that. The 5, 6, and 3 are all pretty close quality wise, I would say. But yeah, and I did see that they're like, I think they just announced this week that, they have officially started filming on number 7.
Oh, and it's on an island, right?
Oh, I hadn't heard that yet. I hadn't heard what the premise was.
Michael Gross, I think it's just something people, they keep making him. So he just, I don't know, he has really inhabited that character, hasn't he? As Bert.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, what are the 2 characters you think of most when you think of Michael Gross? You think of this, and you think of him playing the dad on Family Ties.
Like, they didn't want him for this.
Oh. Yeah. I'm trying to remember who I saw that they were looking at instead of Michael Gross, but it's hard to imagine anyone else in this part. He does such a great job, and it's strange to think that, they took this supporting character and made it, the thing that was going to drive the series going forward. And I'm sure part of that is because they couldn't get Kevin Bacon and they couldn't get Fred Ward, but Michael Gross is really owned this and really, made this franchise something interesting here.
Did you hear about the casting of Reba? Did you hear how that went down?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, the director Ron Underwood didn't want her. Then he met her for a second, was like, okay, you're in. Like, she's just such a warm, he's like, she just took over the room, and she was like my favorite person ever. And he just gave her the role right then and there.
She somehow is able to be both, that character that is, kind of the perfect match for Gross's guy there, where, she's obsessed with the guns and all that. But she also is just like this mom, and you just kind of, you look at her and you go, oh, I want Reba McEntire for my mom,
That scene where she's like, you're not going to get much with that AR. Here, take my gun. It has more stopping power. Yeah. She goes over. And I got to tell you, this movie, does a really good job. So in the beginning, we meet the two characters, and Kevin Bacon is peeing off the cliff that the graboid flies off of at the end. And then
I didn't even think of the book ending of that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and so then he's doing that, and then you go into town and you are introduced to the basketball, you're introduced to the pogo stick, you're introduced to the Coke machine, and then they're buying the bullets, the hollow point bullets that aren't the hollow point bullets they wanted, that they end up putting in the mixer later that brings the graboids to them. So in the first 5 minutes, 6 minutes, all these elements come back. I don't know if that's screenwriting, the ABCs of screenwriting or really good screenwriting, but it's kind of cool how everything, like you said, it's bookended and all the little things in the beginning come into play later. It's kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's like Chekhov's everything in that, but I don't know if you kind of noticed how everything ties back in later on.
I didn't. I guess, I mean, it all makes sense now that you mention it there. But yeah, that's pretty well structured there. I got to hand it to these writers.
Yeah, I've been watching it a lot. I've been like, would I eat bologna and beans or would I eat eggs over easy? I'm like, yeah, I'll definitely do. No, who do you think made breakfast the day before?
I don't know. I would kind of think that if Fred Ward's character Earl wasn't doing most of the cooking, that they'd probably go hungry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he doesn't want to do bologna and beans every morning.
Yeah.
So did they sleep out there? So I guess they just work and sleep and then wake up.
Sleep in the back of the truck or something like that. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that's cool about these two characters is that they're just kind of, they do whatever job they happen to find. You know, whatever needs to be done, they'll do it. If they don't know how to do it, they'll learn it, or they'll do a good job faking you out to convince you that they actually know what they're doing. But yeah, I love that it's just kind of these two guys and they're just, you know, hanging out in this town and whatever opportunity arises. Well, if that's what they need to do to survive, that's what they're going to do, which kind of makes them perfect for, you know, when you have to figure out how you're going to battle a couple of giant worms that are sneaking around the desert.
Yeah, and they also, when they're dealing with the trash, they're dealing the armored, like the tractor, the cat, like they're using that in the beginning too, which comes into play later on. Oh my God.
Yeah. There's a lot of layers to this thing.
Jeez Louise. And then what do you think about as the movie progresses, the graboids, Tremors, they get smarter and smarter. And they dubbed one of them has a nickname. They call him Stumpy. He's the one that gets his tentacle ripped out on the Jeep, which they sell for $15. And that's the one who they think spits the explosives back at the Rock. So did you like how they kind of became intelligent quick? Like almost Raptor and wait, did Jurassic Park rip this off? No. Like they became Raptor smart pretty quick. How'd you sort of feel about their evolution of these creatures?
I think that part of things made more sense to me than, you know, the actual physical evolution that the creatures take as in the, you know, later films that we talked about before. I liked seeing, you know, that, we do this to try and battle the monsters. Oh, they get smart. Now we have to come up with something different. That kind of makes more sense than, you know, suddenly the giant worm is turning into a thing that looks like a chicken with, you know, fire coming out of its rear end. Yeah.
Quickly in 3 days. How does it?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
It's, you know, that's also where the effects get a little bit crude. I mean, you know, as you said, the visual effects they did in the first film, it's good stuff. There's good practical effects, good puppetry stuff going on there. But then we're getting just computer generated, you know, things that are jumping around and flying around, and they are not very good quality because we're at direct to video stage by that point in the series, and it doesn't look as sharp.
I mean, they brought in some big names. I mean, Gail Ann Hurd was producing this at the time. She was coming from Terminator, just like a big name. And then they brought in guys who had worked on Aliens. So they had, the really big Tom Woodruff worked on this. And Tom Woodruff had worked on Jurassic World, AVP, Evolution. He had worked on Alien 3, Aliens, Jumanji, Starship Troopers. And then the guys that did their miniatures also had worked on Aliens in the Abyss. So and also they brought in, I think Kurtzman was on this. Some really big names from like KMB were working on these practical effects.
You mentioned Starship Troopers. There is definitely a little bit. I can see the the similarity between the look of the worms, the graboids, and the bugs in Starship Troopers. I mean, just like the mandibles and such, very similar in design there.